Hey everybody! For this assignment, you are going to listen to this story and read along, and when it is finished, I will have questions that involve details from the text. Good luck!
Colloseum, written by Winnie Toey. Focus question. What is the Colosseum, and why is it still popular today? What is the Colosseum? Have you ever been to a big stadium to watch your favorite team play football or baseball? Do you remember how you felt when your team came onto the playing field? Now take a step back almost 2,000 years to the Roman Empire. Imagine you are seated among ancient Romans in the largest, oldest, and most famous sports arena in the world, the Roman Colosseum. Rome, past and present. The Roman Empire began with the Emperor Caesar Augustus in 27 BCE. It ended in 476 CE. At one point, the Roman Empire covered much of Europe, as well as the Middle East and parts of North Africa. Ancient Rome has had lasting effects on the world. Many countries modeled their laws after those developed by the Romans. The ways that buildings were made during the Roman Empire continue to influence modern building designs. For example, Romans perfected the use of concrete, a strong building material still in use. Today, Rome, also known as the Eternal City, is a busy place. Visitors from across the globe come to enjoy its museums, monuments, and food. Although a ruin, the Colosseum remains an amazing piece of architecture. It is an important landmark in Rome, the capital of Italy, and one of the biggest cities in Europe. The Colosseum is also one of the most famous monuments in the world, standing for the glory of ancient Rome. The history of the Colosseum. The Colosseum was built as a very large outdoor theater called an amphitheater. An amphitheater is a round or oval building with tiers of seats rising in curved rows around an open space. Audiences went to an amphitheater to see different types of games. In the 1st century CE, the Roman Empire was expanding around the Mediterranean area and into northwestern Europe. Its population was about 50 to 60 million, or approximately 1/5 of the world's population. As the Romans grew in power, they began to build large buildings, such as the Colosseum. The original name of the Colosseum was the Flavian Amphitheater. The Flavians were a Roman family that commanded the empire between 69 and 96 CE. Their dynasty began under Vespasian, who started building the Colosseum. Emperor Vespasian became very popular with the people because he built the Colosseum on land where the palace of a previous, unpopular emperor had stood. Now the land wasn't for the emperor, but rather for the people. The Colosseum was also built to showcase the power of Rome to the world. After Vespasian died, his son Titus oversaw the completion of the Colosseum. Building the Colosseum. About 33,000 metric tons, 36,376 tons of soil were removed from a large area to make a deep hole for the Colosseum. Next, huge stone supports, 12 meters, 40 feet tall, were placed for its foundation. Then, concrete was poured into the pit. Once the concrete was dry, workers added brick walls to support the weight of the amphitheater. Prisoners brought to Rome as slaves did most of the physical work. Historians think that more than 292,000 cartloads of heavy stone blocks were used to build just the outer wall of the Colosseum. As the building grew higher, lighter stones were used to lessen the weight. Romans invented wooden cranes to lift the heavy stones and concrete. Slaves would climb into a large wheel and walk inside of it. Rotating along the central shaft, a crane would then pull in or release a connected pulley that extended out along the crane's lifting bar. As a result, heavy stones could be lifted as needed. Important features. The Colosseum is roughly the size of a modern sports stadium. It measures 189 meters, 620 feet long, and 156 meters, 512 feet wide. The Colosseum could hold 50,000 spectators, many more than any other amphitheater at the time. Its floor was made of wooden planks covered in loose sand brought to Rome from Egypt. The Colosseum had 4 main floors with 80 arches on each of the first 3 floors. These arches supported the weight of the stones above them and, on the first floor, were used as entrances and exits. A huge cover called a velarium could be extended over the Colosseum. It was made of canvas and held in place by ropes attached to wooden beams at the top of the arena. The velarium provided much-needed shade for spectators. Without it, they would have spent entire days baking under the sun. Beneath the Colosseum was a complex underground system of rooms and hallways called the Hypogeum, which means underground in Latin. There, fighters, called gladiators, and animals waited before emerging into the arena. The Games. The main attractions at the Colosseum were the Games, which started at dawn and lasted until darkness fell. One of the first events was the wild animal display. Following this came the brutal animal hunts. Emperors would often shoot at the animals with bows and arrows. Animal trainers then teased wild animals into fighting people. Wowzer! 9,000 wild animals were brought to Rome from the far reaches of the Roman Empire to celebrate the opening of the Colosseum during 100 days of games. Colosseum. 1. The outer walls were filled with statues of famous Romans. 2. Gladiators and animals were led out from cages under the arena. 3. The wooden floor was covered with sand. 4. Women and slaves watched from the very top. 5. The velarium, or awning, was attached to ropes that were connected to more than 200 wooden beams at the top. 6. People used 80 arches on the first floor to enter and exit the arena. In the afternoon, the famous gladiator contests took place. Gladiators were trained at a gladiator school called a ludus. Some gladiators were prisoners of war, criminals, or slaves seeking freedom. Others were freemen and retired soldiers who wanted fame and fortune. Gladiators often fought to the death. At times, they would ask for mercy. The crowd was consulted as to whether a fighter should be allowed to live. Over time, Christianity began to take hold across the empire. Romans also faced financial and military problems. Emperors preferred to spend money on fighting wars rather than on repairs to the Colloseum. The importance of this ancient building began to decline around 300 CE. By 600 CE, it had been severely damaged by neglect, lightning, and earthquakes. Afterward, it was sometimes used as a quarry for other buildings. Builders took pieces of the Colosseum to use for their own purposes. The Colosseum today. Over many years, natural disasters and vandalism have destroyed nearly 2/3 of the Colosseum. Since the early 1990s, several repairs have brought this nearly 2,000-year-old landmark closer to its ancient glory. Its walls were cleaned in June 2016 at a cost of more than $33 million. Much of the soot and grime that had piled up over the years was due to automobile fumes. The number of cars now allowed in the area has been reduced. Only cabs and buses may travel around the Colosseum on weekdays. On weekends, only people riding bicycles or on foot are permitted. The Colosseum is one of the most famous and recognizable monuments to have survived from the ancient world. It is also one of the most popular places in Italy. Between 4 and 6 million people venture inside its stone walls every year. In 2007, the Colosseum was chosen as one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Today, it stands as a symbol of the power and greatness of the Roman Empire.